Howdy everyone, welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be working on some enemy AI for our Tamagotchi themed game for the weekly game jam for week 119. I have already changed up one enemy. We had a grunt previously that was doing melee attacks. That was just for getting some AI in there just to look around at what we wanted. I've implemented another AI which is going to slowly move towards the player as it gets within its range, and as it touches the player it'll bounce back and hit it, and so you have to fire them off. I have redone a few things for the player controller, or no, I think I'm gonna move away from mouse controls and instead just use whichever direction you're facing. I'm going to need to add a marker for debugging to tell where we're facing at, which we'll go ahead and do in here in a second. And I've also got a simple combat system, a combo system implemented for the character, in that we can define the timings here. So if we do something like that, you'll notice that that second attack took a lot longer. We can use this later to with our animations to have more control for our combat. Say if we want to have a quick swing and then a long swing, we can do that here, which I'll probably go into here in a bit. It's pretty simple. And right now I have the pet uninitialized because the enemy doesn't really consider the pet. So we're going to get some enemy types first, and then we'll consider how the pet interacts with them. Yeah, so it should be fun. The first thing I want to do is add another enemy type, and this type is going to be sort of like maybe more like a slime type character, a frog like character, where it's going to hop. It's going to be similar to this character I have here, which is more of a crawling slime type character. I don't know. That's just, it's not what it's going to be. Maybe just sort of give you an idea of what it might be. But yeah, then we'll probably have like a hopping character, which is what we're going to work on here in a minute. So instead of crawling towards the character player, it's going to hop. It'll probably need to implement a shadow so we can see where it is relative to the ground. And once it gets close enough to the player, we want it to maybe hop at the player. Rather than, because right now we're probably going to hop a certain distance, and so we want to be able to cut that distance down. Maybe even do a special hop, so like where it is attacking the player with a special hop. So we'll go ahead and start that. We'll create a class for it, which is going to inherit from the enemy class. And I'm just going to name it Hopper for now, just a placeholder name. And we're going to be using, so I'm going to go ahead and go over this, which is the creep is the enemy that crawls towards the player that I have implemented. The hopper is going to be very similar, so we can take a lot of stuff from here. For example, it has a touch damage area. So earlier, a few streams ago, I showed you how I went over a damage area, which if it comes in contact with a hitbox, it'll damage the entity that has the hitbox. And so I had it with the player has a swipe, which has the damage area on it. The creep has a damage area on itself. And so whenever it touches the player's hitbox, the player would take damage. And it actually I had to, well, the whitelist should take care of it to where it doesn't attack itself, because that is a consideration if you have, because the creep has a hitbox and it has a damage area, and you have to make sure that they don't interact with each other. So for the hopper, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a touch damage area. There. Name it touch damage, just so we know what it does. And add, we'll go ahead and add a body so we know what we're looking at and about what the size of. The character is going to be. And which, by the way, I went down to a 16 by 16 tile set. Previously, I was using 32. We're going to go 16 because the art for it is a little easier to do. So it'll be quicker to get things done. And, you know, I quite like 16 by 16 tile set art when it's done correctly. So we have a sprite. We're going to put the sprite drawer on it. The shape drawer. Code that I have. And just give it a little square shape. Its current shape. Yeah, we'll do it. Just so it'll fit right in. I'm going to color it a little different so that just from a glance I can tell that it's not the creeper. Okay. And then we want to do the touch damage. Touch damage is going to be smaller than the sprite for the character, so that just feels better. The player don't feel like they're getting. It gives a little leeway towards the player, so they don't feel like they're getting hit when they shouldn't. So, no, we'll use a square one, just so it lines up a little better. We can change it later, because the shape is easy to change. So there's that. We need to. I have a whitelist system going and a blacklist system, which determines what it can and can't damage. So we need to go ahead and initialize that as well. I don't have an easy way to do it. I did it previously by doing an export, but it broke things and I didn't feel like looking into it. So we're going to do it manually in the code, which I need to extend. So if we look at the creep code, there's this right here, which caches it, and this right here, which tells it, which initializes all the information for it. Okay. There's this, which moves it towards the player. We won't need that probably, because we're probably going to have different states. So we'll probably have a idle state for when it's just chilling out, not doing anything, and when it gets the player, which we want to have an alert state eventually. We should actually start implementing that. We'll have an alert state, so when it sees an entity, it's sort of like, hey, I see you, you know, maybe a little exclamation point flash or whatever. And then we want to start moving it. Now it's not going to walk at all. So it's only going to move when it's hopping. So we'll have a hop state. Do we need to transition to another state after the hop state? That'll be an interesting question. Well, let's get started and see where it takes us. We'll go ahead and create a state machine. And get our states ready. Which, as I said, we'll need an idle state. We don't have to add the alert state right now. It'll be really simple once we get it. And then we'll want to have a pursue state. It can probably. We might even be able to tween the movement, because when it starts, it'll probably start off real quick and then. Oh, that is a good question. I'm not sure. We'll have it as one state for now. The pursue state is where it's going to be jumping towards the player. Then we'll have an attack state, which is where it's going to jump directly at its target. I think that should be fine. So let's go ahead and add it to our game so we'll get rid of these here so we're not distracted by them. We'll just get one little guy in here. Alright, does he have target detection? He does. It's very big. going to go through the scenes and find out who has this by default. Oof. Hold on. It would be AI. I want to make this small right quick because we don't need anything that large. We'll probably have it to where you have to be pretty close on the enemies so that it's not frustrating. And there will be ranged attacks in the game that the player can perform. And when we do that, we'll switch the enemy over to attack state. So they will have longer range from that. So we'll need to consider that while we do our range, because we don't want to be like going to the attack or pursue state. They're not in range, so quit chasing. So it's another thing we'll need to consider. All right. Let's do it here. All right. So when the player enters that, we should already have the logic for the pursuit. We'll get it from the creep. This should be all we need for now. Move him over here. All right. I'm also going to copy these over. So state logic idle, for right now, we don't want it to do anything. Pursue, we want it to start moving towards the player. I don't know though. Part of me wants to do a pursue or a jump and post-jump state. Although I think that might be overkill. I'm trying to think of the best way that we could implement this. Because we're going to be... We could have height variable. This will be how high it is off of the ground, which, by the way, we should add a shadow to convey that. As we jump, we're going to move the sprite upwards. Everything else will probably, like the collision, everything will stay with the ground. So we don't have to move the, well, we'll move the collision as we move it, but other than that, as far as the jumping goes, we'll add another sprite here. And just call this shadow. Hide that. Okay. I'm also going to add some transparency to it. Just that doesn't matter. That's polish. Okay. So we have. We're going to add an animation player, which is where we're going to have our hop animation. We'll set a time for it, a specific time. And all we need to do is move this sprite up and down. We'll use some them easings as well, just to make it pretty. So we'll stash that, or key that, excuse me. Duplicate it here. And then we want to move it upwards. So let's say 16. So let's go -2 up. It's probably a bit much. We can fiddle with it. Yeah. Alright, we'll add some easing. So we're going to add out then an in probably. Yeah, so it looks a little more gravity bound. Alright. I think we are going to add another state. Let's try this first. We're going to try to do it with a timer. So we have a 0.4 second on the hop. Let's do 0.5 second timer. And the hopper guy will have a hop method, which is where we're going to tell the animation player that we have to play our hop method. And we'll set our velocity do speed. Hop speed, we'll set it towards the player target. So we need to okay. In the future, this hopper character is going to, he's not just going to hop towards the player. Whenever the player is not around, he's going to have like a patrol, just sort of walk around his phase. We need to hop then, and he's not going to have a target. We'll probably make that, we'll probably need to rejigger this then so that it considers that. But for now, we're just going to assume that the only time it's hopping is if it has a target. So we're going to make sure that we have a target first. Then we're going to start hopping. We'll play our animation. We need to set our velocity. We're going to set it instantly, I think, because you don't gain momentum while in the air. We need it toward the target, so that the direction, we're going to get a vector 2 equal to our direction, which is going to be the position of our target minus our global position, which will give us a vector 2 of the difference. We need to normalize it and then multiply it. Wait, that's the direction. And we'll say velocity equals the speed of the hop times the direction. This will move us towards the target. For now, it's going to be a constant. We're not going to slow it down. We can polish that up later. We're going to move, and then after the hop finishes, we'll stop. So we'll tag in our animation player. So if we finish the hop animation, we're going to set our velocity to 0. Now I created that timer earlier, which is going to call a hop timer. What this is going to do is tell us to hop again. So it needs to be longer than the animation for the hop, because we're going to call yeah, okay. So we're going to call this whenever we enter the pursuit state. We're going to call the hop timer, or hop method, which is going to start our hop timer. and then it's going to be constantly triggering. So we're going to cancel the one shot. So whenever the timer runs out, we're going to call hop again. We'll probably change this later. Because another way we could do this would be in the state machine. We could say in the state logic, if our state is pursue and the hop timer has stopped, then hop. We may do that later because we might want some extra conditions for when we should hop. Let's go ahead and do it now. State equals state.pursue. Go ahead and do an and here. And the hop timer stops. So parent dot hop timer is stopped. And then we want to call the hop method. So we'll disconnect this. Okay. Now we have it to where it is transitioning to the state. Okay, let's just see where this takes us. Did not trigger. Because we didn't set our state. And we're not applying the movement. Do we have... I don't think we do. But just for here, we're going to have an apply velocity method. Which all it's going to do is... Oh no, move and slide. There. Which we need to call from our state machine. No, it only triggers once, which is interesting. I did make it one shot, right? Or take a cancel that. No, I didn't. Okay. There. When are we stopping? We should be stopping whenever the animation has an end. It feels like it's stopping too soon. Why would it do that? Let's lengthen this animation. Oh, okay, hold on. I see why. It's because that. There we go. So we can. So it was only the apply velocity was only getting called whenever we hopped. So we can bring this back down. Reduce the speed apparently. Bring it down quite a bit. Okay. Now, as you can tell, it's hitting us whenever it's in the air. It doesn't really look right. It looks, because you'd think it'd probably be over your head or something like that. So now we need to make it to where it only damages us if it's landed. So whenever we do our hop, we can disable our hitbox or our damage area and re-enable it whenever the animation finishes. So we have, where did I touch damage? Monitorable. Set that to false so that the hitbox can't detect it, and then we'll set it to true here. And so during the 0.1 seconds where it's not hopping is whenever it can damage the player, which should it should be able to still there. Okay. Now the interesting part, we have to be able to do a bit of design. We need to think about what happens after it hits the player. Well, first, let's make a special attack for it. So we have the attack state. We're going to transition to the attack state from the pursue state. We'll check to make sure it can attack, which is probably going to be a range check and probably even a collision check. If it can attack, then we'll call the attack method, which is going to find the velocity it needs to land on the player within a certain time limit, which will be the animation length more than likely. So what'll happen is that it should land directly where the player is, or around it if we decide to add a little bit of randomization, precisely in the same spot where the player is standing if they do not move. We'll also need a telegraph, so we'll do that as well. So if they can attack the target, we'll also need to do that thing probably with a cooldown. We'll do it for here. Leave it here for now. We'll just return state stop telegraph so that it can telegraph, and then we'll transition from that, which it'll have an telegraph animation. So we'll want to make sure that it's stopped. Once it is finished telegraphing, then it will attack, which we're going to tell here. So we need to make the attack function, which I described earlier, again, we need to get the direction. Just copy this. We need the distance. So first we're going to get the difference. Just as a shortcut. Because we want the distance as well. Okay. Let's have, oops, an attack speed, which is how fast it'll move. The hop will be. It'll be, let's start it with a little slower for now, just to see how that feels. The idea being that we try, hopefully give the player more time to react to it. Now we need to find out how long. Wait, let's see. Well, we might actually need to. How do we want to do this? We can either. I'm thinking we can either change the speed for the animation player, but I would rather keep it consistent. So if we do that, we know how long it'll take. I think we need to find out the speed from that then. I don't know though. The attack speed difference, it's probably not as bad as the animation difference. So I think we're going to go with that. We're going to have the distance. We're going to get rid of this. We need to find the speed. Speed is how many, the speed is going to be how many pixels per second. We can get our time. Well, first we need to make the attack animation. For now, it's not going to do much. It'll look pretty much like a hop, except we're probably going to extend it a little bit, make it 0.6 seconds. Later on, it'll probably have some, what do they call it? Squash and stretch. Actually, I should have just duplicated. Get rid of this. We'll delete this one, and we'll just duplicate the other one, because all we're going to do is change a few variables around, or change the few values around. So this will make it higher, and we'll do it for longer. See how that looks. Whoop. Let's bring this down. I would like for it to look a little more forceful. Boom. All right, let's try that. Boom. Okay. So when we attack, we need to get the time, which is, let's see, animation player dot, I think it's get animation. I will likely have to pull up, I think it's that. Let me double check that. No, that's... Yeah, okay. Animation, and then just length. Okay. Also need to make it this right quick before I forget. which we'll have an attack range for. Let's say no more than 2 tiles for now, which is, I said 30 or 16. There. So we need to get the distance, which is this. And if the distance is less than, what do I call it? Attack range? No, we'll just return that value. So, let's just do this. Okay. Now we also need to make sure that we have a target. Just so we don't get an error if it does. Okay, so if you can attack, then we attack. We have the time, we have the distance. We need to move in that distance in that time. And it's what does it say? Velocity. We have a direction. If it's a 0.5 time, to say the distance, is it multiply? Velocity equals direction. No, hold on. Direction would be a normal. Distance is the length we need to go. So that gives us a vector 2 towards the target. And that is how much we will travel in 1 second. If the animation is half a second, then we need to go half that, I believe. No, not far. I believe that is correct. And then we want to play the animation, which is named attack. That doesn't seem right. Well, it's not exiting. We have... Okay. So we're entering the attack state, but you're not transitioning out of it. We want to transition out of it if the animation player has stopped, because since it is tied to the time of the animation player, which didn't look correct. We'll look at that in a second. Oh, we'll go to pursue. Jeez. I think I've made that mistake at least once already. Might be divided then. Because it looks like it's taking longer than it should. Howdy, Livu. That was a terrible attempt. Anyhow. Hopper. Looks like it. Okay, that looks better. Now it transitioned, that it looked like it stayed in the, I want to find out what state that was. We want to print our state. Okay, so some pursue. So it must have carryover velocity from the attack. We'll say, I think we already have it in the creep. No, the grunt. No, interesting. Okay, well, what we want to do then is, if we don't have a target, in the pursue state, yeah, we're going to set the target to null and then return states.idle. Now it's probably still going to do that because we're not changing the velocity, but it did go to the idle state. So when we enter the idle state, we can change our velocity. We'll just, okay, and that should stop us. So that looks pretty good. I like that it hops back. That was not intentional. I'm going to print the states again. I'm trying to figure out why it does that. So after it goes back into the pursue state, and pursue in the idle. It's not hopping, so it hops. And then when we hop, we get a direction and normalize it. We should be exactly on the player. Ah, it's a very, very small amount. Okay. I'm not against it. We need, though, just in case there is ever perfect, we should hop away from it. So in that instance, because there might be a small chance that it could be perfectly a vector 0. And I think if you normalize a vector 2.0, it still gives you vector 2.0. Let's find out. Yeah. So if it is a perfect vector 2, then we want to randomize it. For the round range, -pi to pi. Okay. Just to make sure that this doesn't break anything, because there's always a possibility, we're going to set direction equal to 0. He should hop around randomly. Okay. Alright, so that's interesting. Let's look at that again. That should be all we need for this enemy. Because it does that weird, that's interesting. It does a really weird hop the first time, and I'm thinking it's because of the distance. He's going a very short distance in the same amount of time. What in that time? What do we have here? We'll add a script here right quick, just for... We're going to add a quick input method that just restarts the scene. Alright. Alright. Okay, now we need to implement damage and stuff. So this will be interesting. Do we want to... It'd probably be frustrating if we added invulnerability while the thing is elevated. So we probably want to keep it damageable. We'll see how it feels. We can always change it later. Where is this? Alright. So for that we need a hitbox. Hitbox needs a shape. That'll do. Okay. We need to do implement knockback, which will be interesting, considering that is a hopper. We need to be able to knock it back while it's still in the air. Which will be a state, probably. Which I believe I did with the creep. Had the knockback state. And looks like I'm using it. Okay. Oops. So Let's see how we did it here again. On group damage, which should be a method here. Then I have a signal. There. And we just set it, the state. No, we call the direction, we call this. Okay. Now knockback, I think I added here. Which all it does is, okay. Yeah, all it does is set the velocity right now. Later on, I have a use. But for now, that's all we need. So, paste that there. It gets the direction towards the entity that attacked it, because I have it as a parameter here. And yeah, direction, there's a default knockback strength that is used, and then we set the state for knockback. Should be good. Now, we need to return out of the state. So we're going to steal this as well. There. Let's see how that works. Okay. I replied to you your comment, Nikki. I told you I was going to be streaming in a couple of hours. However, like I said in the comment, this I would consider this as more of a project inspired by the gem. Like I would be surprised if I have enough time to finish this. Because I mean, as you can see, we're still using squares and everything. We ain't even got any art. Art takes quite a while. I don't have any dungeons. We have 2 enemies though, which is maybe enough. I would like to do 3. We have this guy. That knockback seems to vary a lot. I think we might have... We need to apply... Yeah, because we're doing the velocity here. We're setting pure velocity, so it's changing, I think, based... I don't know, not sure exactly why it's different. But I do know that we're just applying pure velocity. What we want to do is sort of slow it down a bit, so they don't go speeding off. Now, we don't need pursue velocity. We are going to have... Yeah. I agree. Oh. In fact, that's not even the thing I would use. Like, it's just I use the shape drawer for it. I might actually draw a shape for it later, but it's just to sort of visually represent to us that it's drawing, or jumping, excuse me. Telegraph and attack. If we have any of those states, then we want to apply our normal velocity. Otherwise, we want to stop. Because I think that's right? Idle. Idle's not going to move, but it doesn't matter. Well, still, we're going to... I think I did it. Okay. I was going to say we should set its velocity to 0, but it seems I'm already doing that. Let's tell you what. Let's take it out. We'll have it slowly come to a stop, rather than stopping forcefully. So pursue, telegraph, attack. I think that is correct. Okay. And let's see how this looks. There. Okay, not too bad. Thank you for watching, Cosmic Dawn. Okay. So I think we're pretty much done with this guy. Other than some polished stuff. Okay. It's good enough for me. So let's close this out, clean it up a bit. I might go ahead and get started on the next enemy. Although I don't know if we'll have time to finish it. Because I want to do, probably now, would probably do a ranged enemy. One that sort of keeps its distance from you. But, well, maybe, it's probably going to be like a magical enemy. Yeah. Oh, so, close. We'll keep it up because we might steal some code from it. And we'll just keep all of this up. We're going to make a new scene from the enemies. And this one will be just mage. Just a placeholder name. Okay. Should be fun. Shape drawer. Okay. Wait, no, I feel like we're... No, okay, I think we got everything. Okay, for now, at least. All the important stuff. So I'm making sure we got everything for the other character. I don't think we have. We've been adding collision shapes. What would we call it? Hopper? No. So these guys will be able to pass through walls. Let's go ahead and do that real quick then. While I'm thinking about it, because I guarantee I'll forget. Creep. He has one. Okay. We'll go ahead and do it here as well. Yeah, that's good enough. Alright. So this guy, he's going to keep his distance. He's going to start idled like everybody else. And if you get into range, he's going to try to keep a distance. But he wants to, so he wants to follow you if you're too far away. If you're too close, he wants to move away. Yes, I usually keep it out though, in case I want to have any weirdness. Like maybe I've got an enemy without a shape that wants to pass through walls, or I mean, I could not add a shape to it, but I'm not. Then the same thing. I just forget to add the shape, so I usually leave it out because I have also been known to make enemies with multiple shapes, and it feels weird. Like making one mandatory, or I might dynamically make the shapes. Yeah. We'll probably do it with just distance because we're keeping a target of the that we're chasing. Howdy, Thomas. So we're keeping a target of what we're targeting, and so we can say if it's too far away, chase after it. If it's too close, move away. And we can do that probably in one method without having to add any extra shapes. And checking if the shapes are, because that would add to your collision overhead and everything. No, I would say smarter, just different, easier probably. So we're making a mage, and we're going to need a state machine. This kind of mage. Okay. State machine. Here. Right. So here we're going to need to add our states in, which will be, we need the idle, like I said. We'll need to pursue where it's chasing the player. It's probably going to encompass both pursue and flee. It'll probably just be a single state, because it's the same thing. It's just the only difference is where it's moving and how it moves. And so we'll have an attack state, which will be where it flings a melee at or a ranged attack. We'll have to make a projectile for that as well. We'll need to telegraph as well. So we can telegraph the attack. That might be all we need for now. Okay. So during the pursue state, first set our transitions up. So during the idle state, we can just steal that again from here. If we have a target, we want to, or check for a target. If there is a target, then we move towards it. Actually, that was going to add condition idle there. Now for the pursue state, this will be, we'll probably have an attack, prepare attack. How do we do that for the grunt? Because it's going to be very similar to the grunt, which we had a can attack. Do we have? We had a prepare attack state. Do I want to do that again? Because I really don't like having those separate. So we went from prepare. If we can attack to prepare, we'll do it. Parent dot can attack. Then we'll switch to the prepare state. Okay, and then prepare state is going to trigger off a timer, which we'll go ahead and add. We already have. So if we're in the prepare state and prepare attack timer is stopped, then we want to attack. Let me look here. Yeah. Now with the attack, I think I made a finished attack signal. Yeah, we'll probably use that because I previously in a previous stream I had it to where we had a function or a method. We had a variable that would get set whether or not it was attacking. We tied it into the swipe getting despawned. But here we're going to have it. We're going to have it separate just in case we ever do anything different. Like maybe we have an attack that ends before the despawn of whatever it is that it's attacking. So we're going to have it separate, which I did. Currently it is, let's see, where are we doing this? Yeah, I believe it is currently just connected to the signal, but we can change it later. All right, so we're going to connect it via signal then to the state machine. And we're going to make sure that our state is the attack state, because we could enter an attack and then it get interrupted by a knockback, and say you'd be in the knockback state. So we want to ignore situations like that just to be safe. So we're going to make sure that we are in the attack state, and if so, then we'll set the state to pursue. Howdy, Ashley. Set state attack. Set states to pursue. All right, so if we start on the idle, if this has a target, switch to pursuit so that it chases the target. Pursuit is going to be both chase and flee. And if it can attack, which is probably going to be based on a timer, we don't have that implemented yet. It'll be the next thing we do. So if we can attack, prepare to attack. No, can attack would be ranged. So if it's, that's true, isn't it? We probably don't need the prepare attack timer then. Because no, it'll need a line of sight. We'll do it. Prepare went straight into attack. We need to go into telegraph. And if we're in a telegraph state and the animation player has stopped, there. Then we want to transition to the attack state. And then that's when we also need to tell it to attack, because I'm doing this separately. And I forget why. But I swear there's a reason. It's usually when I do it, it's because I want to be able to slip into the attack state without attacking. Maybe there's like it feels silly, but I promise there's probably not a reason for it. All right. Either way, typically when I do something that takes an action like that, I'll separate it out. And even if it gets too complicated, I'll even make like a method for like on attack, which I'll call if it's going to be multiple lines of code. I like to keep it separate, because there has been instances where I've wanted to do it. I think jump is one of those where, like, say if you jump, you would set the velocity. However, there might be times where like say there's a fan under you and it pushes you up. You'd still want to enter the jump state, but you don't want to set that velocity. You want to do it a different way, or like start easing the velocity upwards. So that's typically why I do it. All right. So we have everything except for the can attack, I think, which we'll go ahead and do, which is going to return a Boolean. And this will be, it'll be a few things probably. if in the future we decide to give them magic stats, like magic points or anything, we could have that here. For now, he's gonna be throwing a ranged spell at him, at the player. He probably needs line of sight. I'm not gonna do ray casting right now. We're just gonna assume that we can see the player. So we're gonna do a distance then, a distance check. Which will be, let's go 6 tiles for now. So we want to get the distance, which is the global position of the target. Well, first we need to make sure we have a valid target. And so once we're sure we have one, we get the global position minus the R position, which gives us a vector 2 towards it. Normalize it, no, length it. That'll give us the distance, and if the distance is less than the attack range, or we can just return it. Return the distance is less than attack range. Else we didn't have a target, so we should return false. Okay. We're also going to need an attack method, which will spawn in the attack, which we'll need to make the projectile for. We don't need to get the direction again. We need to check for a target, you know, because we're going to have to get the... Do we need the displacement too? Because we need to get the direction. Yeah, okay, direction. We don't need anything other than that. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Just copy this. And we'll normalize it. There. Okay. Because we're going to be passing that onto a projectile. We don't have a projectile yet. It shouldn't be too difficult to make one. It'll be a node 2D. Projectile. It'll need a sprite so we can see it. No, wrong one. Silly. It'll just be a circle for now. Later on, it may be like, I don't want to just fling spell balls at it. I want to do something interesting. But for now, we're just going to do spell balls because we might use it later. We will need projectiles in the future for like arrows and stuff like that. Let's give it red. And then we need a damage area. There. And it will need a collision shape. Now, we already have different hitbox sizes, and this projectile could be for the player or the enemy, so we'll just keep it exactly. We'll let the different hitbox sizes figure that one out. And I think that's all we need. No, let's add... I ain't done this in a while, so we'll have to look it up. We want this visibility notifier to notify when it's off screen. Okay. And then we're going to add a timer because we're not going to kill it immediately. We're going to start a timer just in case. Like maybe the bullet, maybe it moves slowly. Oh yeah, it would stop. So maybe it moves slowly. It goes off screen for just a second, and then it comes back on screen. We don't want to kill it yet. We want to kill it over time. And we'll connect both of the enter and exit signals, and we can stop the timer. So let's say 4 seconds. There. Okay. Let's add a script. It should be a really simple thing. Why is this a Node 2D? Oh, I was thinking Area 2D. Anyhow, it'll need a velocity. That's probably all it's going to need. During the function, the physics process, we're just going to move it, yeah. Velocity times delta. We will need might want to make it kinematic. If we're going to make it kinematic for now, someone left a comment. I think I've said this in a stream before as well. Someone left a comment that using a bunch of kinematic body 2Ds for bullets is not as effective as a rigid body, but I do not know a lot about rigid bodies, and so I do not care right now. We can always change this later. I'm going to change this to a kinematic body, just so that we can detect wall collisions and stuff like that, which we'll go ahead and add a collision for. And we'll just make it small. Should be good. So that it don't hit the wall too early or anything like that. Alright. We do need to fix the layer, because we only want to check for the mask for that. So now we can use, we're going to use move and collide because we don't need to slide. We don't need collision data right now either, so we won't store it. Well, yeah, equal. We're going to store it because we will use it to detect when we hit the wall. So, and since we're using move and collide, we need to also apply delta because it's not applied automatically. What other stuff do we have here? Okay, nothing important. And if collision. Kill itself. Shoot for it. Stokyo. Nailed it. We're just gonna queue free right now. We will need an animation player later, but we don't need it right now. Alright. We're going to create an export variable. Move speed. This will be how fast it moves in a given second. I think Godot is fantastic for implementing my ideas. One of the best engines I've worked with for implementing ideas. It can be tricky. The most tricky thing is that with prototyping, it's difficult to change inheritance. So say, for example, it's tricky in that aspect for redesigning, because say I can do it, but it's an advanced thing, and it can be a time sink. So let's say I have my character class, I have my AI class, I have my enemy class, they all sort of line up and through inheritance. And say I forgot my AI class like I did previously. If I wanted to slot that in there later on for to have like NPCs that share common methods with my enemies, then I would have to go through the actual scene files and do some editing. Like, there's no way in editor that I'm aware of to change that. So like, we'll open this up here. I'm gonna open up the character. So say this. I would have to go into here and change how I inherit from. This is the character class, which probably that, no. And you see, I would have to go into here, change one of these values. I think it's this one. Type kinematic body to, yeah, it's tricky. It's the only thing I don't like about it. So it can be difficult in that regard. But as for prototyping, it's pretty good. It's good. It's easy to get a quick prototype out as well, and which is, they say, have throwaway code. Don't worry too much about it. Just build something, and then you can worry about it. Just don't build something that you expect to throw away, which I haven't gotten there yet. I tend to come out of the gate planning ahead, which is why I have all that enemy AI and everything else. And when I don't, I end up paying for it, especially in jams. So I like to build ahead of time. It takes time. It's something I need to work on though. But like I said, when I don't, I kind of pay for it. Oh, move speed. This is going to be an export variable. We just need something for now. Let's do a fairly fast one. We're going to slow this down probably for the enemy's projectile. So, yeah. And then we're going to have a function for setting the direction, which will need to be a normal. Hold on. Yeah. There. Alright. And then we're going to set, all it's going to do is set velocity equal to move speed times the normal. Should be good. Alright. Do we have everything? Sprite, got a collision shape for detecting collision, damage area. We need to set the white, no. We need to stash it because we'll be doing that later. It's not extremely common if you plan ahead. And like, it's only come up with me probably a handful of times, and you don't really see it mentioned anywhere else. And it's usually a really simple edit. Like, telling it which scene to look at for inheritance is really about the edit. Maybe deleting some duplicate stuff, all that good stuff. And it's, as you've seen, it's just a text file. It's nothing to really be scared of. I just wish there was a way to do it in editor, but I'm not aware of one. Because I'd say I've been using Godot for probably about a year and a half. I've had the channel for about a year. So I've been using Godot for about a year and a half, and it's probably come up about 5 or 6 times. Anyhow, what was I doing? Move speed. We were caching the damage area, because we're going to need to access it when we fire the projectile, because we want to do the whitelist and blacklist. That's actually a really good idea. Anytime, bud. Alright. So we have the damage area. We're going to have to access that. For that, we have the mage. Mage has an attack method. We have the direction, which we need to pass to projectile, which we need to make a scene for. So that we can instance it. There. So we have the projectile. We need to initialize it. Should we? We should probably. We'll make an initialize method. In fact, well, we have it, might as well keep it. We're not going to rely on it though. I'm going to unset this, because we're going to assert for it here in a bit. So init, no, we're going to have a custom initialize method, which will take the normal, and then we'll use it. Direction, normal. We might add stuff later to it. And we'll have the ready method, which we're going to use to assert that we've done that. Oh, silly. Alright. I did it again. What am I thinking? Alright. So, mage. Projectile. Projectile. Initialize with the direction. And then we need to add it to the scene. We need to make okay, we're gonna add it to the current scene right now. I think that's we'll see. So get tree current scene, and we'll add projectile. We need to set it, and since we're adding it separately, it's going to put it at 0, 0. We need to set it, change its position. We need let's make it a okay, we're going to do a method of position 2D, which is where we're going to spawn our stuff. So spell spawn, which will store and we're going to set the opposite position, excuse me. Let's say 16 will be 1 tile, 24, 20. Did I? I did. Interesting. 8. That would be 1 tile wide, just for. Yeah, do that as well. I started out, well, not started out. I was programming in C# before I came to Godot. I have not used it for Godot because I figured there would be far less tutorials and documentation and information on using C#. So I've never used it. If they're improving it, then that's great. It'll get more people using it, because that is a bit of a barrier for some people. It was for me, like, not a barrier. So say when I first seen it, I was like, oh, grumble, grumble, grumble. I don't want to learn some weird looking language. What am I doing? And so I was hesitant to use it because back then I was a little more strict about the languages I used. But I fell in love with the language, so I kept using it, and it was never an issue for me. So with the spell spawn, we're going to rotate it towards the target. So we have a target, we have a direction. Yeah. So spell spawn. Yeah, he might, but like you'd need a lot of tutorials for it. Which, with Godot growing in popularity, it wouldn't surprise me. We're going to rotate this to the angle of the direction. That was another thing for me. I didn't want to use the built-in editor. It didn't look up to par, but I mean, it's, it gets the job done. So we're going to set the rotation. That'll give us the position that we need. So we tell the projectile to set its global position. To the global position of spell spawn, which should account for the rotation as well, I assume. And that should set it in the right place. And it's set to the direction that we need. That should be good. And that should attack it, I would think. We'll find out here in a minute. So, do we have everything lined up here? We have idle state, pursue state. Pursue state we don't have any movement for, which is fine. It's not important. Can't attack, which is the distance. Okay. Set state prepare. We need to start with prepare timer. So when this timer stops, we'll telegraph. We don't have an animation player. What have I been using? 0.2. 0.4 probably. And then here we'll go and do our puff up like we typically do. 1.3. Oops. I did that position. I mean, it's similar enough. Have you tried the language yet? No, hold on. Because I learned it surprisingly quickly. Granted, may not be true for everybody, but I learned it a lot quicker than I thought I would. Because I wasn't interested in learning a new one either. But I mean, it generally took me about a day to feel good about using it, and about 3 days to feel like I mastered it. It's a really simple language, to the point but powerful at the same time. Oh, what am I doing? Hold on. Okay, that's good. Let's go back to our state machine. So we have it. Wait, okay. So prepare. We enter the prepare. We don't. Do we have an attack? I don't think. What are we doing to emit attack for the other ones? To send the signal that we finished attacking. Connect it. Okay. So for this, we're going to do a timer because there's no need to connect the projectile to it because he could theoretically spawn multiple projectiles. So we're going to have an attack finished timer. Yeah, I would definitely give it a try. Because, like I said, I was when I first started, I was pretty strict about what languages I used. Like, I preferred your standard C style languages. And yeah, absolutely took to the Godot language or GD script and fell in love. So much so that like I feel like I'm probably going to make a channel after I've been using it for like a month or two. So parent dot attack finished timer. I want to rename that just to be clear, and then we'll return states.pursue. Oh, you know what? Let's just go to idle. Alright. And I don't think I stashed it yet. We'll go ahead and do that. Okay. So now we enter the attack, we go back to style. Let's see what that does for us. No, that's the wrong guy. He ain't gonna do it. Let's print his states out. So that we can see what he's doing. Print states.keys, new state. Exactly. We're not setting the state is why. I always forget this. Oops. We're exiting the telegraph too quickly. But probably because we're not playing the animation. Would be my guess. Okay. Now, it seems like that is That's a really big projectile for one. Yeah, it's massive. What does the size 3 look like? In fact, let's copy this up. Paste it there so it shares. What is going on there? We can do that here as well. I already had it pasted. There. That should be that. All right. Okay, he's not rotating the spawn thing that I made for him. Either that or he is, and it's not working as I expected it to. Howdy, Artendi. Oh, this is interesting. Let's that is odd. Well, I did set its position. Yeah, I did. Oh, that is why. Okay. I'm being silly. Well, I was trying to try a new method, but it's rotating, not the way I want it to. Here. Yeah, it's rotating that way, which is not what we want. We can. Alright, bud. You take it easy. Oh, let's see. We can do the cosine sine thing. Thank you. No or. Okay, let's do this. We'll say spell spawn dot position equals vector 2. Wait. Rotated direction. I've never played that. Not like you got a little dudes that hop around. Or wait, what did you mean? Or did you mean Pokemon? With an E. Like Pikachu and all that fun stuff? I was thinking Pikmin, but no. Isn't that a thing? Pikmin. No, it's not like Pokemon combat. It's like, imagine your standard top-down action RPG 8-directional combat. I've decided to move away from the mouse movement. I'm gonna do 8-directional combat. Well, with a joystick probably, any like complete 360. 360 combat. A JRPG, so you'll have a weapon you can attack in any direction, like with the character I'll show you. Like boop boop boop, boop boop boop. These are all sword swipes, you know, and you'll have like a companion that follows you, and it's a little pet, and it's gonna focus on that, like raising him up, gathering food and feeding it, keeping it happy, that kind of thing. And as you keep it happy, like it'll get bonuses and buffs and stuff like that. And long term, I'm thinking about taking this game long term, and sort of making it about the bond between the two. So like, if you've ever had a dog that you really bonded with, sort of like that. Phone dot position dot. It's the really weird way to do this, but maybe that'll work. Rotate, excuse me. Oh, okay. What was it last time then? Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Now let's see. We can get rid of that sprite. Okay. So we have the basic attack pattern loop going. Now we want to get the movement going. So if state equals state.pursue, then we want to apply the pursuit logic. Or we're going to call it pursue velocity. I want to rename it because it's going to handle, like I said, it's going to handle both pursue and flee at the same time. Okay. Else apply stop. Velocity. Alright. And that should be automatic in the AI. No? Character probably then. Yep. Okay, good. Alright, so the mage, pursue velocity. Do it up here. We want to make sure we have a target, a valid target. We want to get the distance. Well, we're going to get the difference because we're probably going to do that for both distance and the direction. So target. Oh, maybe not. But we'll do it anyhow. Global position. We want to have a follow range, and we want to have two. We want to have a chase range, and it's going to be pretty big, probably 8 tiles for now. And then we want to have a flee range, which if the player is within this range, then they try to get out of dodge. There. Alright, so first we'll check for fleeing. So we want the distance. And if the distance is less than flee, means it's really close, then we'll want to apply flee velocity. else if distance is greater than chase range, then we want to move towards it. We'll probably just do this here instead of making another one. For now, at least. And it won't be tidy, but it'll work. So we have the difference. We'll need to do. All we need to do is we're going to set velocity directly for now, rather than worry about lerping. So velocity, or vector2 equals velocity equals vector2. Right. We want the difference dot normalized to give us the direction that the player is in times our move speed. We're probably going to have a separate flee speed because they'll probably be like running backwards, and so it'll probably be a little slower than the move speed. Let's do this here. Dot 16. That's probably a little really slow. Let's go 2 tiles per second. Okay. We don't want them to be frustrating. We just want them to sort of back away, so the player has to keep chase. And it makes them choose between either chasing the enemy down and sort of letting other enemies get behind them, or dodging them until they deal with the other enemies. So it makes it for an interesting choice. Velocity times move speed. Okay. Actually, I don't think we even need to worry about that. We can do it here. Velocity equals. Now the difference, I don't think you can just inverse it. Okay, we'll do it again, but we're going to do it backwards. Which will give us a vector2 away from the player. Normalize it, and then multiply it by the flee speed. And then at the end of all that, we'll apply it to our movement. Equals move and slide. Okay. I think it still would have moved, though it didn't. There it goes. Okay. It needs a hitbox shape, probably. Okay, so we'll have to polish that up a bit. It's very hard, and if it's hard for me, it's going to be hard for the player. So we'll polish that up in a bit. But that's so far. Let's test the chase. Chase seems rather slow. That would be 4 tiles per second. Shouldn't be that slow. Oh, what the hell? Okay. Get it. No, typically you're better than the player. You're not changing. That's interesting. Ah, I bet it's because it's in... No. No, like you... I've never encountered a situation where I was... Where the... Well, I mean, some players, sure, but your standard... Like, you have to consider your typical player. Like, that statement would be true if all players were better than you. Then you could be like, okay, that makes sense. But, yeah, it's not likely to happen. You don't want the... I mean, like, if you're making a brutal game, then by all means. But if you're making a standard game, my rule of thumb is, like, make it easy for yourself. If it's easy for you, it's probably hard for the players. Because as you play through it, you get really skilled at your game, at dodging, attacking. You get really accustomed to it, and you sort of... The players don't have that, and they're more easy to give up. When I did my game Bunny Wallop, I can beat the last level in one try, and it was always like I always never had an issue with it. I have not seen anybody else beat that level. So after that, I gave it to people to play for like on streams and stuff like that. Never seen them beat it. And after that, I've sort of took the like try really tone it down. Like make sure you get it play tested and everything. I didn't have time. Like typically with me in a jam, I don't have time to get any play testing done. I'm uploading it at the last minute, and it's still not finished. Oh, good times. Anyhow, why is he moving fast all of a sudden? That's weird. And he's also not updating the velocity towards me. Right now he is. He's not there because I see. Wait, maybe. No, yes. That's a big one too, yeah. That's a good way for players to break your game. I've had that happen a lot. Oh, let's see. We're not resetting our velocity. So we're saying here, if this, else velocity equals, we're just going to set it here. It's going to look weird because this is, every other time it's going to come to a stop. But for this, it'll be yeah. Alright, it's hitting itself. So I did not notice that. And that's because indeed, that is true. We need to set the whitelist. I told myself to do it and never did. Projectiles, let's see, whitelist. Yeah. Friendlies. No. Oh, damage area. I believe I did. Chances are I forgot to do it. Let's make sure. There we go. Okay, so it's not hitting himself. That's outside of his attack range. We need to fix that. We shouldn't really have. Let's just return true. For now, like I said, later on it's going to do like a collision check. Or like a make sure it can hit it type of thing. So he's not just spamming the wall with spells, but for now that will do. Alright, good stuff. Alright, and there he is. So we have 3 enemies now. That should be enough to make a decent game. Go ahead and throw them all in there. We have 4, but you know, the grunt was just a test enemy, just to what was that, creep? And then we want the hopper, this guy. Oh, I will probably later want, I need to make a note of that. Add invulnerability while dodging, which would be surprise features. Player state machine. I know in the player we have a dodge method. Let's just make a quick note. Add invulnerability. Alright, I think that is going to do it for tonight. Appreciate y'all for watching. Y'all go ahead and take it easy.